The preacher man says it's the end of time.
Gerald Celente will be with us 5 minutes in the next hour. Then I'm going to have open phones and go over just masses of vital news and information. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. You know, Gerald, I love this modern media spin that we're being negative, we're hurting confidence with our, what was the New York Times called you a purveyor of pessimism porn, and they've called me a purveyor of conspiracy porn all over the news, Newsweek, Time Magazine, and others, when all we're doing is reporting on the spectacle of foreign banks stealing tens of trillions, NAFTA and GATT destroying our industrial base, China buying up the ports, the roads, taxes exploding. And then we're here saying, hey, this is a bad idea, and the government's answer is, shut up, don't upset people, we need to take your free speech away. I mean, if that's not bona fide tyranny, what is?
Well, it's, again, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. And as I've said many times, think of the word confidence. We're hurting the confidence. It's a con game, confidence, con man. That's all they are. And again, when I came out and said, listen, this real estate market is not going to correct itself, they're taking our money to pump it up, oh, you're a gloom and doomer. You're hurting confidence. No, we're stopping the con game, and they don't like it. You want to hear one for the books? Remember Judith Miller with the New York Times, the toilet paper of record? She was the one that pushed off the propaganda sent to her from the Bush administration, the Cheney neocons, that Saddam Hussein was acquiring materials to build nuclear weaponry. She came out recently and said that WikiLeaks is bad journalism. Could you imagine this coming from her mouth? They can't stand us, Alex, because we're exposing the game and we don't suck up and bow down.
It's incredible. She also came out and called for civility in media, but her lies and her publishing of those government lies knowingly helped cause all our dead troops and all those dead people overseas and the goodwill of the U.S. that's in so much trouble and these failed wars. You know, it's fine when they lie about WMDs. It's fine when government does things like that to kill people, because they're not going to show us all the dead Iraqi kids on the news. They're just going to try to use this dead 9-year-old to take our liberties domestically. They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, you look at the front page coverage whenever it's a Veterans Day or whatever in the New York Times. It's pure propaganda. Oh, and I was mentioning before about current events forming future trends. I mentioned China. Two things before I go on. One is that as the American media is so focused on this Arizona tragedy, as a trend tracking tip, watch the rest of the news going on around the world, because there are big things happening that are going to change the direction of things. One of them being what's going on in Tunisia. It's going on, and it happened in England. It's been happening in Italy. The youth of the world are uniting against what's going on. The students of the world, they're angry and they're mad as hell, and they're not taking it anymore. They're rioting in the streets.
You predicted this 2.5 years ago on air. You said that the education bubble would pop worldwide because there are no jobs for these degrees.
Exactly. And they know the levels of corruption, what they call austerity measures you were talking about before. Raising taxes, lowering the minimum wage, losing jobs, losing pensions, losing benefits, added up. Students in the streets in France, in Italy, in Greece, in England, in Tunisia, in Turkey. It's happening in front of our eyes. Why did it happen in the U.S. during the 60s?
Final 5 minutes. Answer that question. Back in 60 seconds. Third hour coming up with Gerald Celente. All right, I'm going to blitzkrieg through stacks of vital news in the next segment after Gerald Celente leaves us in about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to take calls for the balance of the broadcast, peppered with some other important news coming up. But I want to hear from you, 800-259-9231, and we'll get you up and on the air today. Gerald, you were making a point again when the break cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, go back to the 1960s, and I was there. I'm 64 years old, so I was prime draft meat in those days. Why were the students out in the streets? It was very simple. They were getting drafted, and they didn't want to go to Vietnam. Why isn't anybody protesting these Afghan and Iraq wars? And by the way, in this midterm elections, not a peep about cutting the military budget or ending the wars. Why aren't they there? Because their necks aren't on the line. Why are they protesting in Europe? Because their necks are on the line in a different way. They have a futureless future. They're in debt. They have no money coming in. The same thing is going to start to happen in the U.S. because these kids are facing mountains of debt. They have these university degrees in worthlessness. They're stuck home living with mommy and daddy. They're smart enough to know it's just like the days of, it's neo-feudalism. Now we have the kings and queens of commerce that are robbing us blind. But the difference is, back in the feudal days, they didn't have the kind of information that you're putting out there. They didn't have information from the Trends Journal. They didn't have all of this knowledge. They see what's going on, and they're angry. So the revolution is going to happen from the students. Because let's face it, when you're 18 to 30 years old, 28 years old, you know, you have these hormones raging through your body. You don't know any limits, and you're angry. You think they're going to be taking to the streets in protest. They have nothing to lose by doing it. They have everything to lose by not doing it. And I want to add one more point into it. As we're looking at these phony employment numbers, they're not accounting for all the young people that haven't gotten into the employment sector because they can't find any jobs. When you add that number in, you're looking at another 3 to 4 million that have never been put into the system.
Well, it's a recipe for disaster. And then you've got so many other people who their parents cook the dinner for them, never make them wash the plates, never make them do laundry, never make them do any work, and then they get into the workforce. I mean, it's not only that, you know, are the globalists cheating us, there's a lot of lazy, entitled people in this country, and now as reality dawns on them, government hopes to organize them into some type of political mob to, you know, be the jackboots to rob those of us that do work. But I just don't see that happening. I mean, an army of entitled slobs, you know, does not make an effective Gestapo.
No, but you might find them at the TSA, you know. No, you're right. No, they won't be able to stop it. It's happening. It's happening. Again, only look at the news. And that's what I'm saying, and I want to make that point again as a trend forecaster. We're looking at the other news going on around the world. Again, Turkey, Tunisia, Greece, Italy, England, France. The students are up in arms. The tuition rates increased 200% in the UK as they're cutting back on everything. Oh, and by the way, we're going to raise the value-added taxes. Oh, and your property taxes, they're going to go up too. We're going to squeeze every nickel and dime out of you. All of a sudden, Alex, these dim-witted bureaucrats who never come up with a bright idea, they know that they have to have the money coming in so they can keep their jobs.
And now they want to cow us to not have political free speech. Gerald Celente, thank you for joining us so much. We'll be right back. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.